Hello. Today, let's take a moment. We're going to step away from the usual hustle and just think about something a little deeper. Something a bit more fundamental to, well, who we are. So, let's begin with a quiet question.
Just think about it for a second. All those things that define you professionally, in a meeting, on your resume, when you introduce yourself. What if we could just gently peel all those layers back? What would be left of you?
If your job title just disappeared tomorrow, gone. That title you've worked so hard for, the position you hold, it just vanishes. So what's left when that main identifier is suddenly gone?
So let's just sit with that for a moment. This idea of a disappearing title, this contemplation of absence. What does it actually feel like to imagine our identity without that familiar professional structure holding everything up?
First up, there's the official label, right? Senior manager, lead developer, creative director. Poof, it's gone. That single line that so often grounds us when we meet someone new, it's just not there anymore. And then, what about the role itself? The daily rhythm of your tasks, the purpose you serve in your work. All of that, the whole what you do part of your story, is suddenly on pause. The page is blank.
And of course, there's the tangible proof, that little piece of cardstock, the business card. The thing that kind of validates your place in the world, connecting your name to a company and a title. Well, that's gone too.
So when all of those external definitions are stripped away, what's really at the core? It's a pretty direct question, maybe even a little confronting. Who would you be, just standing there without any of it? Look, this question isn't supposed to have an easy answer. It's really not. Instead, it's meant to lead us a bit deeper, toward the person who's actually carrying all those labels. And this is where we can start to explore our identity beyond just a position. Because what we're really getting at here, what we're searching for, is that enduring self. That part of you that stays constant. The core of who you are that exists completely separate from any particular job or role or company. So, you might be asking, why does any of this even matter? Well, it's because there seems to be a really powerful link here. It looks like our strength in the professional world is deeply, deeply connected to our strength in our personal world.
And this, right here, is the core insight. It's not about rejecting our professional lives at all. It's about anchoring them in something much more stable, something more authentic. See, when you know who you are without the title itself just becomes a role you play, not the whole story of who you are. And that's when your growth becomes more resilient. It becomes more real.
And so this whole reflection brings us full circle, right back to you. After we've peeled away all those external layers and thought about the foundation underneath, well, we arrive back at that final question.
So I'll leave you with the very same question we started with. And it's not really meant to be answered in a single moment. It's more of a thought to carry with you. Without the title, without the role, who are you, really?
Let's talk about a subtle habit that so many of us have, one that happens almost automatically in our professional lives. It's all about how we define ourselves and how that one little definition can quietly start to shape who we are. Just think about it for a second. When you meet someone new and they ask that classic question, "So what do you do?" What's your immediate, almost reflexive answer? Right. That automatic response is what we're going to look at first. It's this habit of the professional introduction, this reflex we have to label ourselves for other people. A lot of the time, the answer that comes out is just a single word, a label. Maybe it's manager, or perhaps it's director. It could be a role like consultant, or maybe even a quality like leader. Each one, in its own way, is a designation. And this gets at a really simple truth from our source material. We introduce ourselves through designation. It's just convenient, right? It's a quick shorthand to place ourselves in the world. But here's the thing. This habit, it doesn't just stay on the surface. Over time, it can lead to this really subtle fusion between our professional title and our actual identity. The process is really gradual, as the source puts it, and slowly the title becomes who we think we are. It's not some sudden change, but more of a quiet, creeping merger of the role we play and the person we are. So this is probably a good moment to just check in with yourself. Have you ever noticed that subtle shift, a moment where the line between the job you do and the person you are starts to get just a little bit blurry? Okay, so how can we think about this differently? Let's explore a new perspective. This idea of seeing our title not as our personality, but simply as our function. our source offers this really simple but powerful redefinition. A title isn't who you are, it is a function. And this distinction is so key. A function is what you do, it's a role you perform. Your personality, on the other hand, is who you are, your inherent identity. The title belongs completely in that first column. It describes an action, not a person. And that really brings us to our final thought here. It's an invitation, really, for a moment of reflection, a quiet space to consider the self that exists beyond any designation. So we'll end not with an answer, but with a question for you to just sit with. Who are you without your title? Today, we're going to explore something many of us feel but don't always talk about: our relationship with professional success. Not just its rewards, but its potential to quietly, almost invisibly, reshape our very sense of self. And let's be clear, there's a deep, very human satisfaction that comes from our work. That feeling of achievement, of recognition, of contributing something, it's genuinely powerful. It gives our lives a kind of structure and meaning, and that in itself is a wonderful thing. But this is where we need to pause and ask a gentle question. What happens when the satisfaction we get from our professional life doesn't just contribute to our identity, but becomes the whole of it? This question really brings us to the core idea we're looking at today, that subtle but profound process where our work can start to consume our personal identity. There's a term for this, actually. It's called identity fusion. This is when the lines get blurry, where I'm a person who does marketing slowly, quietly becomes I am a marketer. The difference in wording seems so small, doesn't it? But its implications are huge. Who we are becomes the same thing as what we do for a living. At its heart, the issue is this: the professional role is no longer just a part of your life. It fundamentally replaces the self. There's just less room for the other parts of you. The friend, the artist, the family member, the curious hobbyist. The role takes center stage. So, what happens when our identity becomes so tightly fused with this one thing? Well, it becomes inherently fragile. And this can lead to 4 specific vulnerabilities that start to emerge. First, criticism of our work stops feeling like feedback on a project. If your work is you, then any critique can feel like a direct, personal attack on your character, your intelligence, or your worth as a person. This feeling gets even deeper when we think about failure. When a project doesn't succeed, it's no longer just a professional setback that you can learn from. It gets internalized as a deep, personal failing. The thought isn't, I failed at this task, but rather, I am a failure. The stakes get even higher when the role itself is lost. If your profession has replaced your core self, then losing that job, maybe through a layoff, it's so much more than a loss of income. It can trigger a real existential crisis. If you are your job, then who are you when that job is gone? And this brings us to the final fragility, one that looks toward the end of a career. For someone whose identity is completely wrapped up in their work, retirement might not feel like a new beginning. It can bring a profound sense of emptiness, a void where that vibrant professional identity used to be. All of this, the way we process criticism, failure, and these big life transitions, it all seems to circle back to a single fundamental question about who we really are. And this is the question at the heart of it all. This isn't about diminishing the importance of our careers. It's just about asking whether we've created enough space for a broader, more resilient sense of self to thrive alongside it. It's a question worth reflecting on. Who are we, truly, without our work? So today, let's try a simple but pretty profound thought experiment. It's really all about who we are when we take a step back from the familiar labels we all carry around every day. It's a quiet little exploration into, well, the very architecture of our character. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Our jobs, our roles, our place in a particular hierarchy. These are the things we use to introduce ourselves, right? It's how we measure our progress, how we figure out our place in the world. They sort of become a shorthand for our identity. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. This is the heart of the thought experiment. What actually happens when we gently start to peel back these external definitions? What's left when all the titles and all the tangible measure of success are just not part of the equation anymore? Let's start with this one. Just for a moment, I want you to try and mentally set aside how well you do your job. And I don't mean your effort. I mean the results, the KPIs, the praise, the criticism you might get. Just imagine yourself without any of your achievements or your mistakes. For a second, just let go of your performance. All right, now let's take it a step further. Imagine you don't have a title. It doesn't matter if you're a manager, a parent, a team lead, or an intern. Just let that position kind of dissolve. You're not above anyone, you're not below anyone. That whole structure of rank and seniority, it's just not there. And now for the last external layer. Let's let go of income, your salary, your financial standing. Just for this moment, it has absolutely no bearing on who you are. The number in your bank account is completely irrelevant to this. So, with those external markers gone, your performance, your rank, your income, what is actually left? This is the crucial question, isn't it? In that quiet space that you've created, what is the real substance of you? What are the core values that truly define your inner self? Let's explore that a bit. Think about patience. I'm not talking about the kind of patience you need for a tough project at work. I mean that fundamental ability to be calm, to be accepting when things are delayed or when you're struggling. Is that part of your architecture? And what about curiosity? That genuine desire to learn and understand just for the sake of it, not because you're trying to get ahead or solve some problem, but simply because the world is interesting. Do you have that spirit of inquiry inside you? Then there's discipline. And again, this isn't about hitting deadlines. This is about your personal commitment to yourself. It's that ability to follow through on something you decided to do, to build a habit, to act in a way that aligns with your own values, especially when no one is watching. Let's think about kindness. It's such a simple, foundational human quality, and it exists completely separate from any job title or salary. It's just the decency, the compassion you show to other people simply because they're there. Is kindness a cornerstone for you? And finally, are you resilient? When you're faced with a setback, big or small, do you have that inner capacity to endure it, to adapt, and to recover? This isn't about being professionally tough. It's a much deeper, more personal kind of fortitude. So now we can see this really clear distinction, right? On one side, you have all the external titles, the job, the rank, the income. They're tied to a specific situation. They can be given to you and, well, they can be taken away. But on the other side, we have these core traits: patience, curiosity, kindness. They're portable. They belong to you and only you. And this really says it all. Your character, the thing that's built from these internal values, that's what you carry with you everywhere, from one job to another, from one phase of your life to the next. Titles, they get left behind, but your traits, they travel with you. It's a quiet but powerful thought to carry forward, isn't it?
Let's take a moment to think about this idea of character. Maybe not as something we just have, but something more like a structure. Something we're consciously building, piece by piece, throughout our lives.
So, let's start with a question, just for you to think about. Who are you when you're at work? And who are you when you're not? Is there a difference? For most of us, there probably is.
And, for so many of us, the answer is a definite yes. We feel that split, don't we? It's like we have this work self that we put on in the morning, and then a completely different home self that comes out when we're with family or friends. It's actually a really common way to handle all the different demands on us.
But what if there's another way to think about this? The idea we're exploring today suggests a different ideal. It's not about being a different person in different places, but about being, well, a single, consistent self. Just like the quote says, a refined individual carries character across environments.
So how do we even begin to build that kind of consistency? Well, the key might be to stop seeing the different parts of our lives as being in conflict with each other. Instead, what if we saw them as sharpening grounds, as places where different parts of who we are get honed and refined?
Think about it. Think about your professional life. All those deadlines, the projects, the need for structure, that environment, it's almost perfectly designed to sharpen our discipline, isn't it? It teaches us how to focus, how to be diligent, and how to see something complicated all the way through to the end.
And then there's just life, everything outside of our jobs, our relationships, the good times and the tough times, our connections to the people we care about. This is the place where we really learn compassion. It's where our empathy gets sharpened, where we learn to truly understand and connect with other people. And there's one more piece to this puzzle.
Responsibility. This could be responsibility for a team at work, for your family, or even just for your own word. When you take on that kind of ownership for something beyond just yourself, it forces you to see the bigger picture. It broadens your view. It sharpens your perspective.
Okay, so we have these different sharpening grounds. We've got the discipline we build at work, the empathy we learn in life, and the perspective that comes from responsibility. The real goal then is to bring all of that together. It's all about integration, about moving away from being separated into different selves and toward becoming one unified person.
And you can really see the two different ways of thinking here. On the one hand, you've got separation, that's work versus life, where they feel like they're in a constant battle. But on the other hand, you have integration, and that's work and life. It's a small change in a word, but it's a huge shift in mindset. You go from a tug-of-war to a partnership.
This really gets to the heart of the matter. The goal is not separation of life and work. It is integration. So it's not about trying to find that perfect, delicate balance between two separate worlds. It's about weaving them together. It means the discipline you learn at your job can help you be more present at home, and the empathy you learn at home, that can make you a much better colleague at work.
So, what's the result of all this? What happens when we actually start to integrate these parts of ourselves? Well, it's about more than just being efficient or feeling less stressed. The real outcome is becoming a stronger, more whole person. Your character becomes more resilient because it's unified.
When we live with that feeling of separation, there's a real risk of replacement. That's where our professional identity just kind of takes over, and we start to become our job title. But the alternative path, the one through integration, leads to strengthening. This is where your work experiences add new layers to who you already are, making your core character even richer.
And this is so important. Your work should be an expression of who you are, an extension of yourself. As it says here, professional identity should strengthen personal character, not replace it. It should be adding to that architecture we talked about, not knocking down the foundation to build something else.
So, let's circle back to that phrase we hear all the time, work-life balance. That idea implies we have two things on a scale that we have to keep perfectly even. But this approach we've been talking about suggests a totally different goal. It's not really about finding a balance, it's about becoming whole.
And so, I'll leave you with one final question, something to just carry with you. What would it actually mean for you in your life to be a single, refined individual, to be the same person with the same core character no matter where you are or who you're with?
Hello. Let's just take a quiet moment together to explore a simple but I think really profound idea. It's about who we are in relation to what we do, a kind of quiet reflection on the very foundation of our professional lives. So I want you to just consider this for a moment. Really think about it. If your job, the title, the company, all of it, if it all just disappeared tomorrow, what would be left? Would you feel shaken? Would your sense of who you are feel like it's collapsing? You know, it's a very modern thing, isn't it? How often do we introduce ourselves not by who we are, but by what we do? Our identity gets so tangled up with our job title that, well, it's pretty hard to see where one ends and the other even begins. But what if there's another way, an alternative? Imagine facing that exact same change, but this time, your core sense of self, your character, is still there. It's steady. It's unchanged. Just take a second. What would that feel like? So let's break this down a little. On one side, we have confidence, and that's so often tied to things outside of us, right? Our job, how well we're performing, the feedback we get. And sure, it can feel powerful, but it's also pretty fragile. Then on the other side, you have character. That's internal. That's something built from within. And it just endures no matter what's happening on the outside. And this really gets to the heart of it. The most stable professionals, the ones who seem truly resilient, they build their identity on their values, not their titles. They're not anchored in the shifting sands of a job role, but in the solid bedrock of what they personally believe in. And we can call this an anchored identity. Really, it's a sense of self that's grounded in your core personal values. It's about the principles you choose for yourself. You know, things like integrity or creativity, or maybe a deep sense of curiosity. These things, they provide stability. They become your true north, no matter which way your career twists and turns. When you start to see it this way, your professional life stops being a container that defines you. Instead, it becomes a stage, an arena where you get to express the identity you already have. And that's a way of living that goes way beyond any single job or company. And really, this is what it means to be an effective professional. It's not just about being successful in a certain role. It's about operating from that stable internal core. It's not that they're effective despite all the change happening around them. They're effective because they're anchored. So as we finish up here, I just want to leave you with this thought to reflect on. What are those core values for you, the ones you can build on? What are the principles that stay true, no matter what it says on your business card? Really, what values form your anchor?